Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. Victor leaned back in his chair at Enterprises, his hands steepled, eyes cold with satisfaction. The man who built an empire brick by brick was on the verge of reclaiming it. Kane, trapped by circumstance and desperation, had finally caved. Victor had successfully cornered him. All that was left was the formality. Kane would sign away his claim and Enterprises would return to its rightful owner. Victor smirked. It was almost too easy. But in Genoa City, nothing ever stayed easy for long. Kane, though visibly defeated, remained a man tethered to purpose, his family. He made it clear that he would transfer back only if Victor proved that Lily Winters and the twins and Charlie were safe. Victor, ever the puppeteer, dangled the proof but refused to show his full hand. He wanted the company first, then and only then would Lily walk free. Victor thought Kane had no other move, but that's when the shadows began to shift. Across town at society's upper level, Summers sipped her martini with a grin. She sniffed out the weakness in Victor's, the way he played people like chess pieces and expected them to follow the rules. Billy was seated across from her, watching her with narrowed eyes, half impressed, half wary. They were old flames and even older rivals, but tonight a different energy between them, calculation, ambition, and just a little vengeance. "I assume you're not just here for the cocktails," Billy muttered, leaning closer. Tilted her head, that signature smirk on her face. "You assume right. Kane's about to hand Victor back the company on a silver platter, and we both know how much that screws you." Billy's jaw clenched. Was right. If Victor got back, the balance of power at Chancellor and his leverage would disappear, and more importantly, Victor would win. Billy hated that. "So what do you want from me?" Billy asked. "I want us to make sure that doesn't happen." And just like that, an alliance was born, shaky, born of necessity but potent, had a plan and Billy had access. Together, they would find a way to block Kane from executing the deal. They knew Victor's leverage was Lily and the twins. What if they could remove that leverage entirely? Back in his penthouse, Kane paced. His phone buzzed, another message from Victor demanding action, a second message up. This one wasn't from Victor, it was from two words: "We should talk." Kane stared at it, the tension in his gut coiling tighter. Something was wrong. Victor was pushing too hard. Sniffing around meant someone else was trying to get in on the game, and Kane was stuck in the middle, a pawn between giants. Meanwhile, at the ranch, poured herself a drink, watching Victor pace the room like a lion caged. She didn't trust him, not anymore. His silence about Lily, the twins, all of it gnawed at her. When she asked him again if they were truly safe, he flared. "Don't question me," he barked. "I told you they're unharmed." "Then why not let them go?" she countered. Victor pulled out his phone and showed her the photo, a grainy image of Lily, Charlie, and in a hotel room. They looked fine, but it didn't ease her worry. Victor might not hurt them, but someone else could. This wasn't just business. This was teetering on criminal. Turned away. "One day this will all catch up with you." Victor said nothing, but her words echoed louder than she knew. In Boston, at the secluded clinic on the edge of town, sat curled in the corner of her room. Her eyes were swollen, her breathing shallow. She had her mother to come, but Sharon hadn't shown. That was the breaking point. Always strong, always steady, had finally cracked. Back in Genoa City, Sharon stood by Noah's hospital bed, guilt washing over her in waves. She held his hand, watching the steady beep of the monitor, but her thoughts were miles away. When called, she had sounded so fragile, so lost. But Sharon couldn't leave Noah, not while he was still unconscious from the accident. Now, though, she feared it had cost her everything. "If I'd just gone," Sharon whispered. She didn't finish the thought. The weight of regret was too heavy. At Crimson Lights, Billy and met again. They had found a vulnerability, a way to access Kane's signed documents before the handoff. Billy would use his position at Chancellor and would manipulate Kane's assistant into delivering the files into her hands instead. "Once we have that paperwork," said, "we control what gets signed or doesn't." Billy, his eyes dark with purpose, "Let's burn them both down." Meanwhile, Kane arrived at the agreed location where Victor's associate waited for the handover, but something felt off. There were no calls from Lily, no updates, no direct proof, just that same damn photo. He hesitated, looking around the parking garage, half expecting a trap. And that's when it hit him. Victor had never intended to his part of the deal. As he started to pull back, his phone buzzed again, this time with a video. Lily, looking scared but unharmed, said his name, said she loved him and him to do what Victor asked. It looked real, it sounded real, but Kane didn't trust it. His instincts screamed betrayal. Just as he was about to call it off, another call came in. It was from Billy. You've been played, Billy said without preamble. Victor not going to let them go. Kane froze. And if you give him the company, Billy continued, you'll have nothing left, but I can help you get your family back. The silence on the line was deafening, then Kane asked, why would you help me? I'm not, Billy said, I'm helping myself, but if it saves your family too, that's just a bonus. Kane's eyes narrowed. He didn't trust Billy but did he really have a choice? That night Victor sat in his office waiting. The documents never arrived. Kane stopped his calls, and then finally the message came not from Kane but from, we're taking in a different direction. Victor's fury was volcanic. He slammed the phone on his desk, shouting, no one crosses me, and walks away. But this time someone had, two someones, Billy and now they had his company. Victor had lost. Victor's rage could be felt in every corner of the tower. The air seemed colder, tighter, like the walls themselves were bracing for the fallout. The phone in his hand was trembling not from fear but from the sheer force with which he gripped it. He barked for his head of security, ordered trace calls, pulled every surveillance feed from the building, and demanded answers. None came. Had locked it all down. Billy had scrubbed the records. The legal team, sworn to confidentiality with new NDAs, refused to pick a side. Kane was MIA and Victor's control, his legacy, had vanished overnight. Meanwhile, across town in the Chancellor conference room was on her third celebratory drink. Billy stood at the window looking out over Genoa City like a man who had just climbed a mountain and was now debating which valley to burn next. They had pulled it off. Kane had gone quiet, most likely trying to protect Lily and the twins in some desperate countermove, but the paperwork had been intercepted. The transfer never happened. And with Victor's leverage now exposed, everything was falling their way. We just outplayed Victor, Billy said aloud, as if saying it would make it more real. Didn't look up, let him stew, he'll be too busy saving face to come after us for now. Billy turned, you think Kane will come after us instead? She set her glass down, let him try. But Kane wasn't coming after them. At that moment he was in a dingy motel room near the outskirts of the city, sitting across from a man who worked for Holden, the same Holden who had been helping him behind the scenes. And the man across from Kane had something, raw footage from the hotel room. The one Victor had sent as proof. Only this one showed what came after the camera stopped recording. A guard walked in. Lily looked up in fear, reached for her mother's hand. Charlie tried to shield them both. It wasn't a safe haven, it was a hostage situation. Kane's face paled. His worst suspicions were true. Victor hadn't just manipulated him, he'd endangered his entire family. You get me into that hotel, Kane said, voice low, dark. The man wants tonight. Elsewhere sat in silence in the ranch living room, her fingers curled around a glass of wine she had yet to drink. She hadn't seen Victor since his blow-up that morning. Something had shifted. His silence wasn't a storm, this time it felt like a surrender. When Victor finally walked in, he looked older, not physically but in his eyes, the kind of age that only comes with betrayal. Stood, what happened? He didn't answer right away. Instead he walked over, poured himself a drink and stared at it. I underestimated them, he finally said. His eyes widened. It wasn't something Victor ever admitted. Billy and Kane didn't cave, they're all turning against me. Sighed, lowering herself onto the sofa. Maybe it's time to stop playing God, Victor. This obsession with control, it's cost you everything. Victor turned slowly, his gaze narrowing. I did it for this family. No, replied softly, you did it for your pride. At Memorial Hospital, Sharon sat alone in the waiting area. Noah had stabilized and she was finally allowing herself to breathe again, but her thoughts were with lost, unstable, emotionally crumbling in Boston. She had tried calling again, no answer. She thought back to the call, the sound of his voice on the edge of tears, asking for her, begging for her. Sharon had let her daughter down. She had chosen one child's coma over another's cry for help, and now she didn't know if she'd ever get the chance to make it right. When she checked her phone again, a voicemail blinked. Her heart pounded as she hit play. Mom, it's me. I don't know who I am anymore. I needed you and you weren't there. I'm not angry. I'm just gone. I think I need to disappear for a while. Please don't try to find me. Sharon nearly dropped the phones. She stood abruptly, heading straight for the elevator. She would go to Boston. She didn't care if Noah needed her. She would find and drag her back if she had to. Her daughter wasn't going to fade away, not again. Meanwhile, Kane was already on the move. Dressed in all black, accompanied by the Holden associate, he entered the hotel through a service entrance. They moved silently, passing guards who had already been bribed to turn the other way. On the 7th floor, Kane waited until the signal was given, 2 taps on the fire door, then he moved. Inside room 714, Lily startled awake to the sound of the lock turning, and Charlie sat up quickly. For a split second, they feared a worse fate. But when the door opened and Kane stood there, breathless, eyes wild with desperation, Lily rushed into his arms. "Are you real?" she whispered. "I'm here, and I'm getting us out of here." No one stopped them, no alarms, no armed men, just silence and shadows as the family disappeared into the night, free at last, but not safe. Victor would want revenge, and she wasn't likely to forgive him either. Back in town, received a text. "He has them, they're gone." She sighed, sitting back in her chair. That meant Victor had nothing now, no leverage, and while Billy was thrilled, it left her feeling uneasy. Kane had played the game better than expected, and a cornered man with nothing to lose was a dangerous enemy. Billy, meanwhile, was already making calls. With Kane out and Victor dethroned, Chancellor's future was wide open. He was already scheming new board members, fresh acquisitions, and a bold press release that would cement his and power. But power in Genoa City came with a price. The next morning, Victor called a family meeting at the ranch. Victoria arrived first, then Nick and Adam stood in the background watching her husband closely. "I've lost control of Enterprises," Victor said without preamble. "Kane betrayed me, Billy, and double-crossed him. The company is gone." The room exploded in protest. "What do you mean gone?" Adam barked. Victoria stood furious. "You promised me a seat at the table." Nick looked genuinely stunned. "You let them, you." Victor slammed his glass down. "Enough." But no one quieted. For once, did not come to his. "You asked for this," she said. "You taught them all to fight, you raised warriors, and now they've turned on you." Victor said nothing. He just sat there, surrounded by the empire he once built, and now reduced to a man alone. Later that night, walked through a rain-slick alley in Boston, her hood up, eyes down. She had no plan, no destination, just the weight of her own mind pressing in from every side. She felt like she was watching her life through glass, detached, cold, broken. And then from across the street, she saw someone. Sharon. Standing in the rain, soaked, crying. Froze. Sharon stepped forward, saying nothing. Then broke, ran into her mother's arms, sobbing. "I thought I lost you," Sharon whispered. "I thought you gave up on me," replied. "Never." And under the streetlight in the pouring rain, mother and daughter found each other again. In Genoa City, power shifted once more, was lost, Chancellor was in flux, and the streets buzzed with gossip. But one thing was clear: no one would ever be the same again.